Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Gabriel Ethan.
And my name is Chaterine Marsheila Putri.
So today we will be presenting about verbal messages in intercultural communication. Okay, now first of all we're gonna explain to you about verbal messages in intercultural communication. Verbal messages in intercultural communication are spoken languages that carry meaning, and these spoken languages they have cultural values that differ from culture to culture. And in intercultural communication, words may be different and have different implication depending on the culture that they are on. There is two styles of verbal messages in intercultural communication. The first one that we're going to talk about is the direct style, which is where speakers explicitly state their intention and their needs immediately without no second meaning or second guessing. And these are very common in low context cultures. And there's the indirect style, where speaker hides or softens the intentions because it is a mean to be polite and being respectful to each other, which is common in high context cultures. And these styles reflect on cultural values, which are task versus relationship orientation, and can affect misunderstanding.
So for the next is the Javanese. Javanese use a high contact collectivism culture, social harmony, and group loyalty are paramount. Javanese is the larger ethnic group in Indonesia, value conscious and restraints. Face, face saving and politeness is the people act with a great restraint to avoid offending others, protecting reputation, and saving face. Hierarchical norms. Society is organized by age. Hierarchical norms. Society is organized by age, status, elder and superior common differences. Formal speech and gesture, like bowing or honorific, show respect. Harmony over bluntness, conflict is avoided, courtesy and differences are expected even in disagreement. This context lead to indirect, gentle speech, understanding and differences, and avoidance of open confrontation are common.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the American cultural context. So, in the American cultural context, they have the low context, which are an individualistic culture, and Americans they value independence and self-expression, and the message that they're trying to say to each other. They focus on explicit content, which is content that is assumed minimal, which goes direct, and they prioritize clear, straightforward communication so it can be efficient and doesn't really cause much misunderstanding because what you say is what you mean. And in egalitarian norms, people use their first name and casual language even with new acquaintances, maybe only using the titles sir or ma'am, and they are actually rarely used except in certain occasions. And Americans, they are very open to debate. Whenever you disagree with something, you tell that person and you try to debate them about it. And speech is also valued and silence is feared. So whenever you have something in mind, Americans will always say it immediately without restraint, so that honesty can be shown, and it's also a part of their value.
Okay, so next is the communication style, indirect for Japanese and direct for American. With the high and low context, Japanese speech often relies on shared context, nonverbal cues, and implication. Americans expect all key information to be said explicitly. Americans are direct. They say what they mean and expect others to do the same. For example, like at the US, business person asks, "What can I do for you immediately?" Javanese are indirect. They may hint at needs or give nuances responses to maintain harmony. For example, instead of flat no, a Japanese person might offer a vague or qualified answer. Questioning. Americans repeatedly ask direct questions to clarify meaning. If an American doesn't speak up, it's assumed everything is clear. Japanese rely on cues. They often expect listeners to read between the lines, to notice the hesitation or tone, rather than asking pointed questions. For example, when agreeing or disagreeing, an American might just say, "No, I can't do that." Whereas a Japanese person might say, "Maybe we can talk about this later," or remain silent to avoid saying no.
Now we're gonna talk about Japanese verbal indirectness, where speech levels there's ngoko and there's chromo, and Japanese use different registers by relationship. Like ngoko is for the informal when you talk to your friends, to people that you know close, and people at the same age. Meanwhile, chromo is used for people who are older or people who are your superiors and something like that, and to your parents. And there's also polite phrasing where requests and refusals are softened for, like, instead of saying yes or no, one might say perhaps, which is barangkali, or later, which is nanti dulu. So they don't really show direct ways to say no or yes, but they say like in a way, oh, maybe later, maybe soon, maybe like that. And euphemisms and indirection, it's very common to imply disagreement, where Japanese say up to you to politely signal disagreement, which a foreigner might not catch. And they also like to avoid confrontation, where criticism is embedded in compliments or general statements, and understatements and fake language maintain harmony. There's gentle tone, where speech is generally soft and slow at first, and Japanese people often speak quietly and use pauses to consider their words, especially with strangers. An example of this is a Japanese might say that perhaps we could use this, we could discuss it tomorrow if that's okay, rather than saying I disagree. So it's like almost like them delaying it, but in truth, it's them saying no.
So the next is American verbal directness. Explicit message. Americans say exactly what they mean. Communication is clear and focused on the task at hand. Clear request or refusal, question like "Can you do this?" gets trained answer. Americans expect a definitive yes or no when asked. Efficiency driven, conversation aim to solve problems. Small talk may be brief. People often cut to the case. Silence may prompt more talking to get more answers. Assertive, assertive style, Americans are comfortable with the debate and direct feedback. They'll openly voice the disagreement if needed. Vocal intensity, voice may be louder or animated, especially when excited or making a point. For like an example, an American manager might say this report needs improvement. Direct and then suggest change. They might ask if this clear and expect immediate feedback, whereas the indirect approach is in use.
Okay, now we're moving on to politeness strategies in Japanese context. See, in Japanese context, honorifics and speech levels, politeness is built into language choices using chromoforms and respectful pronouns like the word panjenengan versus koe. It shows a difference, like to say some to call someone panjenengan or to call someone koe shows that panjenengan is more to respect and koe is more as an informal way and not much respect is implemented. There's also the saving face culture where Japanese often start comments with positive remarks or apologies to soften criticism. and compliments are common, like to praise appearance or praise efforts as a courtesy. There are also soft requests where commands are turned into requests. Instead of bring the tea, one might say, would it be possible to have tea in a roundabout way? And there was also hedging for phrases like it might be that or maybe later are used to avoid direct demands or refusals. There's also implications over directness, where the burden is on the listener to interpret hints. For example, as a Japanese person might quietly suggest a dislike, I'm not sure about this, expecting the other to infer disagreement.
So for the political strategies, Americans explain courses Perez. American typical say please, thank you, and excuse me routinely. Politeness is often lexical, word-based rather than structural. Positive feedback that praises and compliment are given directly about accomplishment or qualities. A great job on the presentation. People openly mention success. Informality use of the first name and friendly tone is common. Formality is reserved for very hierarchical situation. Softening criticism even when direct American might question bad news. Criticism is often delivered with some diplomatic phrasing to avoid offense. Honest value, and for that example, that an American might say, "Could you please help me with this?" and expect sure or no, sorry, plainly. They rely on polite remarks than the sentence.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk about misunderstandings from Japanese to Americans. So there is the perceived evasion where Americans may find Japanese indirect answers confusing or evasive. Hints and understatements can be missed and it can lead to frustration. There are also silent pauses where Japanese silence may be misread as lack of understanding or indifference by Americans. There's also missing a no, where some phrases in Japanese are considered as no, as rejecting, but Americans can't really see and understand it. There's also the formality gap, where what something is called formal and being respectful in Japanese is viewed as weird in America, or maybe the other way around. And there is also overlooking praise, where Japanese compliments are often indirect and it's very soft, and all most of the time Americans miss it and can't really see it.
So for the next is misunderstanding that American through Japanese. Perceived rudeness, Japanese may find American bluntness, train, no, or critics rude. Direct criticism can be embraced for them and harm harmony. Loudness, American loud, faster speech can seem aggressive. A Japanese person might interpret and raise American volume as anger. Impatience and casual address that American use the first name or casual language with the elder can offend the Japanese. Individual focus American praising themselves or pushing personal opinions may seem boastful. For example, like an American might say sharply that is not right, hoping to clarify an issue's way. A Japanese listener may feel this is the personal affront as more face-saving approach. And so for the implication and strategies, the awareness foster intellectual contact, let's respect differences, practical tips. The conclusion is being mindful of verbal indirect versus directness. Politeness norm and tone can greatly improve Japanese, American communication, explicit knowledge of cultural communication style bridge gaps.
That will be it from our presentation, and we hope that this can help us to understand each other, people with high context and low context, so that you can have a shared unity between cultures. Thanks for watching, guys, and this is from our group.